Welcome everyone to the Pause and Read Book Club. Today we're having just a little bit of a hangout session. Me and Drake, we're going to ask each other a few questions, all going to be book related. Total transparency with the podcast people, this is mostly for TikTok, but I think you're still going to enjoy the conversation anyway, and you'll get
the whole thing.
You'll get more extended answers than we give out on just the short form.
If you want to hear the usual banter, I guess. And of course, I assumed already, we're going to answer our own questions as well. I know we're directing
we'll add a little bit after.
Yeah, not full, I feel like, but what is the most important quality of a book to you?
Oh.
Super. I feel like it's an easy one.
I think it's a good question.
Yeah.
The most important quality? The pages. If it doesn't have pages, man,
I'm out.
Yeah,
I mean, let's keep it simple, like characters, plot.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say overall fun, like we kind of talked about earlier. And then of course how well it's written.
I think we both kind of learned this reading The Fisherman, is that the most important quality of a book is how fun or how enjoyable it is to read. Because no matter how good the story is or the plot or how much you enjoy the characters, if it's just straight up a slog to get through, you're not going to enjoy it as much as you would as a book that maybe wasn't as well written, but you enjoy reading it more.
So like someone that uses like a lot of prose and really heavy on the detail, it might not be as good if something that's simply fun and enjoyable to...
Yeah, it's like the reason that you might go back and read your favorite sci-fi book 8 times, but you only read Lord of the Rings once in your life.
So hard to digest.
Yeah.
I think the same for me. I think just overall fun. And I'm not going to say bingeability, but I feel like that makes it so good. Like, even if it might not be as well written. I actually have great comparisons with the books I'm reading. Same as Fisherman. And along with, I mentioned last time, a superhero book I was reading. Nowhere near as well written, but it was fun. I read like 300 pages in 2 days.
Yeah.
But it wasn't deep. It wasn't anything. But it made it, I just liked it so much more simply because of that. I think characters is a close second. I'm a big character guy.
But consider Phoebus.
Who?
It's a sci-fi book.
Oh.
Don't worry about it. I'm sure it's very popular. Some people have probably read it. But I did not really vibe with the main character of the book. So even though it's super cool, it's like a really cool sci-fi universe. But it was just kind of hard for me to get too interested because I didn't care about the main character. So if I don't care about him, what's the point of reading the book? You know?
That is true. A lot of my booktubers say the same thing, which I can't really relate to yet, I feel like. But a lot of them say like the story was great, the action, whatever, was amazing, but they hated the main character and they honestly wish for their downfall.
Yeah, I find myself doing that too. It's like, I hope this is a tragic book.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that yet, so I can't really understand. But
do J.K. Rowling's transphobic comments ruin Harry Potter for future generations of young book readers? Or do you think that parents that care about her comments will just look past that and still give Harry Potter to their kids because it's such a popular series? Or do you think that's going to wane off in the future because of how she ruined her legacy?
I don't think it will matter for the vast majority of people. I feel like unless you're someone that's, had to deal with that in your own life, or you think very heavily about these topics, then yes, it probably hit you pretty hard. I think the vast majority will look past that and just write it off as the author. Now, future works that she may do, you could discount that. That makes sense. But Harry Potter is so like, what's the word for it?
Yeah, it's like a phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, it's so lasting, forever lasting. I don't think you can take away from that just by the author messing up. Because I do not hold the author accountable, or like I don't hold it to the same regard as the book and the stuff they make.
Separate the art from the artist. I
separate it. I know some people will hear stuff like that and never touch it again out of respect for whatever. Comments are one thing. She's a bigot.
I am a big separate the art from the art. Like, I love Harry Potter, and I don't think it matters that a bigot wrote it. I mean, on some level it does. Like, you shouldn't go parading around saying I love J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
And but you can still say you love Harry Potter without
Yeah.
I feel like you're inflicting a wound into
Also,
a demographic of people.
it's also been so long. Like she
Yeah.
did that so long ago.
Yeah.
If she would have just released it and then the next day release all this stuff, I'm like, that's kind of strange. But it's been so long.
Also,
It's its own thing.
I feel like it's a we're in like a circle where people care about that information, like care about her comments. But I do feel like 90% of people, maybe even higher, do not care what J.K. Rowling has to say, and it
Yeah.
doesn't even cross their mind. Like if my grandma was going to buy books for like one of my nieces or something for their birthday, she's not going to look at Harry Potter and think, "Oh, can't buy that," because
That's also
you
another
know,
thing, which is true. No new fans of a series, I'd say 99%, do not look into the author
yeah,
at all. Even J.K. Rowling is huge name, but even like normal book readers probably wouldn't even really think about
yeah.
it.
I know
I mean,
so little about all the books I've read. Their authors. The only one I know is Adrian Tchaikovsky because I follow him on Twitter and stuff.
yeah.
But like Giles Christian that we just read, couldn't even tell you what he looks like.
He
I
can
don't
do
know
whatever
anything
he
about
wants,
him. Yeah,
man. And not unless it's like, I think maybe when we do this for another 10 or so years, we're still reading. I feel like a lot of people like to really care about the author and read everything from them. I don't think we're
yeah,
at that point. Since
yeah,
we're so fast paced right now, it may hit us eventually, but right now, I don't think it really matters.
yeah.
This one's really simple too. An ideal length of a series for you.
Series?
Standalone trilogy.
Okay.
I don't know really how else to phrase it, but you know what I'm saying. Standalone, would you rather a trilogy, a duology, so
Okay,
on and so
okay,
forth?
okay. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I thought you meant for a book.
No,
But no.
no.
Okay, that's a different question.
Yeah. Pretty simple.
I think you got to go with 3. It's just such a natural build up because I've read 2 series where a 4th book comes out, and the 4th book is always like an anthology series of just other stories about this character, and I don't care about that. I want to know the main story. For any of you Warhammer listeners, this will definitely be cut out of TikTok. But the Eisenhorn series,
No one.
the 4th book, the Magos, is not interesting. I don't care. I want to know about the overarching plot, and I want it to stop when the story's over. I don't need more from a character just because they're a compelling character.
Yeah.
So I think 3 books. If your story is content and or completed, and you feel like I could write another book, but it's not going to be as good, just don't. Leave it at 3. Let your 3 stand by itself.
That is so hard to do for authors, I feel like, because you're chasing the money. I
Uh,
feel like.
yeah,
But
they all write 15 books.
so I want to say, does your point still stand if it's like a universe, like the Cosmere, or like the First Law, where it's like 3 trilogies a part of this?
No, I think if it's a universe,
It makes sense.
if you're as long as you stay within the rules of your universe and future series don't ruin your original one, like you don't change rules and like, oh, this could have happened in the original one.
So you
but it
mean it's a
changed the whole
different
plot.
branch? You're fine with
Yeah,
a different
if
branch.
you branch out and write 18 books in your series, as long as they don't ruin that original 3, your original one, that's fine. Write as much as you want within your universe, because as an author, hard to come up with a universe. It's hard to balance all the rules and dynamics. And if you want to just keep writing in that, go ahead.
I definitely agree. I feel like it's a pretty common with a trilogy. It's pretty perfect. Now, I
Yeah.
will say, I feel like 4 to 6. I feel like if you're gonna do it, you go all the way to 6. Don't do 4. I think same with you. I think it's a weird stopping point. It's like a weird. I don't know why, if it's just how our brain works.
Yeah, I think it is just.
Yeah, but I feel like I almost, like Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives is supposed to be 10. I think stuff like that, it has to make sense. It has to be such a huge story that you're building up to that it makes sense. And also depends on pace too.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends on what you give yourself, like what your story's about. Like Brandon is very lucky with how he set it up to where it is a universe. But other stuff, it's like,
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to know when you start writing a book, is this going to need 10 books?
yeah.
But I feel like you can sort of know, oh, this is just a 1 book plan. This is more of a
Yeah.
trilogy, or this is a bigger story. I need a plan for way more books in the future.
Well, let's go back to Harry Potter. That's kind of a weird one, isn't it? I mean,
It's 6.
that's kind of like
Yeah.
it also ends pretty perfectly.
Well, it is the end, like, it's a definite ending.
Yeah.
There's no room to be like, when Harry Potter was 40 years old, this happened. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. The book ends. It's over.
So no standalone. I feel like standalone's hard for me.
Standalones are fine, but like we're reading a standalone right now. But
I just want more. I think that's the
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
I don't want it to end, so I think it's more
It
like
also depends. Like in our heads, we're probably thinking of like fantasy and sci-fi, but like
there's no horror.
most other genres, well, besides romance, but those goes on to be like 40 book
50
series.
fucking
Yeah,
books.
those don't count.
That's true. There's
But
no
like
horror. Is there any horror show? I mean, I know there probably are.
there probably are.
No
I
big
don't,
ones though.
I don't none. Well, the Dark Tower is the only
That's
one I
true.
think of. But you're not gonna be like, man, I wish the Odyssey was 3 books.
Yeah.
Like, no.
See, the thing is about horror, you can't have sustained horror. In my view, like you kind of want it to end because it has
Yeah.
to end like
Because it's all
gruesomely or something.
like one of the most important aspects of horror is pacing.
Yeah.
So if you're if you just keep extending it, it's like you can only stay scared for so long. Eventually,
you get bored.
yeah, you're gonna get bored, or you're gonna start to like make a joke of the horror because you can't
Yeah.
keep something scary.
Unless,
that
of
long.
course, the horror is the subplot of something like
Yeah.
Stephen King stuff.
Yeah, if the horror is in the background, that's probably a little bit easier. But you can't have like a ghost story go on for 20
Yeah.
books. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, fantasy is one of the few that you continue on, and
Yeah.
sci-fi. Sci-fi probably more so, because you
Yeah.
with an ever-expanding universe, you can really get weird
You're
with
not
it.
limited by time.
I think it
so,
gets
like,
worse though. I think it's the problem with sci-fi because fantasy you can build on because it's
Yeah.
mostly whatever. But sci-fi is like, don't want to keep.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about fantasy is like, if you're into history at all, then if you write long enough in a fantasy book, you could be like, you could have your original main character say, come up in like a history book about like past rulers. And
That's true.
sci-fi is a little bit weirder to do that because in sci-fi you probably have to have bigger time jumps to make sense to keep going with the setting.
Yeah.
Or instead of going forward in time, you just move to a totally different plot at the same period because you have the whole universe to work with, not the small or relatively small fantasy world that you
Yeah.
have in fantasy books. This one's definitely more of a personal question. When you read, do you envision yourself as the main character? Like, do you put yourself in their shoes? Or do the characters or the main character exist totally separate and you view it as you're just hearing a story about someone? Or do you personify yourself as the main character?
Do people do that? Do you do that?
No.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
No, I guess I see it as if I'm watching a movie, if that makes sense. I
Yeah.
see it past. I don't see me in the story or at all. It's just like, I guess the best way to describe it is like a what's it called? Like a 2D game, or just like it's flowing.
Side scroller?
Side scroller, where it's just like it's happening, and I'm just like watching it, and it's like filtering through.
Yeah, I figured we would have the same answer for this question.
I don't think
But-
there's no way people do that.
I don't know. Well, okay.
I need to see people.
Leave a comment if you sick person.
Yeah, because I don't know what.
No, but I'm sure, like, everyone has power fantasies after you read a series where you, like, maybe after you finish a book, you imagine yourself in that universe. I do that a lot. Well, like, not where I'm the main character, but just like, what would I do if I were put in this, not even the main character situation, but just like if I lived in Harry Potter in the Wizarding world, what would I want to do with my life? I don't imagine myself as Harry Potter though. That's a totally different. I'm not gonna be, destroying Lord Voldemort.
Yeah, I don't put myself in any story at all. Like, I don't even think about me in that world really at all. Besides, I mean, obviously Harry Potter. I think it's like very general, like very like broad. Oh, I'd like powers. I could be in a world full of powers. I like magic. But
Yeah.
I'm never like stuff like I'm definitely not imagining myself in Fisherman of any sort.
Well, no.
Or Ender's Game.
Okay, yeah. When they're more realistic, it's harder
Yeah.
to imagine yourself. But like Cradle, you'd be like, ooh, would I be a Jade or an Iron or?
I do think a little bit about it, but yeah, now that I really get asked that question, I don't think I really associate myself at all with it. It's just more of a story. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never really thought about it. I guess I'm more like that with anime. Like anime, I've definitely it was cooler. I
Yeah.
guess maybe the powers are typically a little bit
Yeah.
wilder.
Well, yeah. And in anime, it's a lot more. The characters usually a little bit more simplified, so
Yeah.
it's easier to put yourself into an anime world or persona in your own mind, like while you're watching it or reading a manga. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
I really would like to know anyone that does do that. Next question. This one kind of breaches into another form of media. Would you rather read a great book or watch an okay series that extends for multiple seasons? It's like a
Mm,
guilty pleasure. Like, but you
yeah.
could sit there and read. You could watch for hours. Or would you rather read a great
Are
book
you saying like for one day or just in general
in
every
general?
time?
Like every time, good books over like really
Yeah, yeah.
consistent series, I guess.
This one's hard for me because I wouldn't say it's a mediocre series. It's a pretty great series, but I'm watching Star Trek at the moment. But
Trash.
some okay, well, but sometimes I come home and I'm just tired. I'm like, I'm just gonna watch Star Trek. I don't have to put any effort. I just look with my eyes
That's
and I can
true.
watch it. But I think if I had to choose one, I would choose a great book because even though you have to put more effort into it and you have to like actually use your mind, not just to
Imagine
read,
it.
but yeah, to create your own imagination and interpret things. Maybe it's a little complicated book, but you get so much more out of a book than you do a series. Um, like similar for us. Like imagine if Stargate was a book series, how much more compelled you would be to finish it than you are just the TV series because you know the TV series you can just go to it whenever. But I feel like when it's a book series and you start it, there's like this sense of underlying urgency to finish the series to see what the outcome is.
And even sometimes when you're really tired, I don't know about you, I either get completely lost in it and my mind is just running and I'm imagining everything, or I don't see anything. Like I'm
Yeah.
like,
You're
what are
just
they
like
talking about?
you
Like
just literally it's like on a test when you read a question and don't
you
understand it
yeah,
at
you
all.
don't.
It's exactly that.
I'm like,
You
what's
read a
happening?
whole page and you're like,
Where
I
are
don't
they?
what just happened? I don't even
Yeah.
know what I just read.
But with a series, I'll never have to rewind it.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah, I'm
easy to
literally
interpret,
yeah.
right? Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think ultimately I would choose the book, even though the series is easier
Yeah, I think I
to do.
choose the book as well.
What is your least favorite trope in books?
It's hard for me to imagine because I've read so few. I'm not annoyed by anything yet. I mean, I want to say like the no. 'Cause I was gonna say the all-powerful main character, but I kind of like that.
It's kind
Like
of my thing.
that's Cradle. Like I really
Yeah.
like it if it's done well. I really don't know. I don't think I have one right now. To be completely
Really?
honest, I don't think I have a negative
I
trope.
mean, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't
Yeah.
been exposed enough to be like, damn, that
Mm.
dude's annoying.
Mine is. It's not exclusive to books, but books do it a lot. Where something exciting or world changing or something crazy happens in the story, and then that chapter ends, and the next chapter is something completely different, or like a flashback, or something boring away from the action. And almost, I swear, like every book I've read does this, but it's like something where I'm just gonna make something up, but the main character is in a ship, and the ship crash lands on a planet, and you don't know if they survive the explosion. And the next chapter starts, and it's like Julio is walking through the jungle where he discovers a crashed ship, and it's like, no, I want to see all of it. I want to see their struggle
Oh,
surviving the crash and all
that's
of that.
interesting because I think that does happen in literally everything.
Yeah,
It's kind of like multi-perspective, you
yeah.
know? Actually, I will say, we're reading the Priory of the Orange Tree.
Hmm.
It took me about 80 to 100 pages to get used to constant changing perspectives, multiple POVs.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say I don't like them, but it takes me a while to get used to it because of how
Yeah, it takes a
fast.
second.
I don't know if that's like I don't dislike it, but it was definitely hard to get used to.
Is this the first book you've read with multiple POVs?
Yes,
I think it's also mine. I don't think I've read a book.
like a huge. I mean, it's a huge
Yeah, I mean, I've read
break.
books where one chapter is from another perspective,
Yeah,
but this one,
it's
you have
constantly.
3 to 4 main storylines
Yeah,
going on at the same time.
so nothing yet. Hopefully, I just never get annoyed by anything.
You just love every book you ever read.
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for to get burnt out, but I'm good with that for now. This is a good one, I think. Does reading as an activity have enough of an influence on you to actually affect your mood?
Ooh, that is a good question. Okay, well, to start answering this,
Like, obviously, if you're sad, can you read a lighthearted book and get happy? Or if
right,
you're
right, right,
happy,
right. Okay, I'm gonna start it by answering the other medium, television or whatever.
uh
Um, I find that in general, my mood doesn't really affect what I would watch, in terms of like a movie or a TV show, because it's like escapism.
so if you're sad, it's not gonna matter what you watch.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like
You're not
I
gonna
can't watch this because this is
yeah.
mirroring myself. It's just like
Uh-huh.
whatever. Um, but I think yes, I think you are correct because I'm usually reading multiple books at a time, aside from this month. But normally I am. I will choose what book to read based on how I'm feeling. Like if I'm stressed out or depressed or whatever, I will most likely read a Warhammer book because I can just escape into that universe and instantly, because they're all written in the same universe, it's so easy to jump into because I already know what's going on no matter what the book is. Whereas, let's say like last month when reading The Fisherman, I had to be like in the mood to read that book. I couldn't just pick it up like, oh, I'm gonna read a chapter real quick before I go to work or before I eat dinner or whatever. Like, no, I got to be in the mood to sit down and focus on this book. So I think my mood does affect what book I'm willing to read, and vice versa.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
It could change. Well,
I think
it won't make you sad.
it won't make me sad, but maybe if
Will you feel for the characters if something bad's happening in a book? And if you
okay, I will say a book will never put me in a bad mood. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be pissed that that Harry lost the Quidditch Cup. You know what I mean?
we're making a
I'm
lot
not
of
gonna be
Harry
like,
Potter.
I know we are talking about Harry Potter a lot. I need to do something a Junji Ito book and be upset that a character died. I'm not gonna be like upset in the real world. You know what I mean? You're not gonna call me. I can be like, I don't want to talk right now. I'm reading, this book.
But it's also like if something huge in a book happens, do you get like a excitement? Same for the happiness. Do you get that?
Definitely feel.
Do you jump up and down? You're like,
Okay, well I don't put the book down and be like, oh.
whoa, and just fucking insane.
But I do think, yeah, it gives you a little boost of energy. Say after you finish reading, if something really interesting just happened, you're kind of like, you're not motivated to do anything, but you just feel like a sense of energy because you're kind of just like hyped at what you just read.
Yeah. So I'll say, y'all aren't gonna know this about me, but I'm an extremely neutral person. It does not matter what I'm feeling. I could literally read anything whenever, and I will immediately just jump into it, no matter how I'm feeling. Now that's like emotion-wise, but like my mood, as in like what I want to read, that is pretty, that is dependent on how I'm feeling at that point. Like if I'm in the mood for Fisherman, because arguably I'm always in the mood for like a huge fantasy where like there's so many layers, whereas the Fisherman, we reference the books that we read, obviously, but like something, as far as like something simple and realistic, I'm not gonna want to read.
Yeah, you're less
most
motivated
of the time
to read it.
But no, yeah, I've definitely never felt sad about a book. I think that, well, I feel like for us, that's not a big factor. But I think for a lot of people, it may be. Some people take it really hard when something happens, like a character death. I don't care, though. I mean...
Yeah, like I read it's called Darkness Take My Hand. It's like a really intense, depressing murder mystery book. And at no point did I feel depressed or like disturbed by it. So it's not like even something that dark, while in the moment, I'm feeling the emotions, I'm reading it, but after I put it down, I'm not gonna be like sad the rest of that day, or I'm not gonna have an emotional response outside of the context of reading the book.
Yeah, and I will say, I think we're the same for movies. I could literally watch the #1 scariest movie ever, and I will not. I'll leave that room or whatever, and I will not think about that again.
And my brother's girlfriend last night, they went and watched the Smile movie, and me and Charlie, my brother, are the same way. We were both like, yeah, that was okay. And she was like, that's the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. I jumped like 8 times watching the
Yeah.
movie. I mean, granted, I watched it at home. He watched it in a theater.
Yeah.
But still, we both of us were like, yeah, that was okay.
Yeah. But I think vice on the other side of the spectrum, a hype moment is gonna get me like I get like a, not butterflies, but like a race. Like my heart's
Yeah.
kind of like, damn, that was pretty cool. And what happens to me when something awesome is happening or something like huge, I'll read faster. Like
Yeah.
I'll start like just like what's happening next, what's happening next. That's why I love reading so much because I'm a fast reader already. But that's what I hate about like normal TV series or whatever, because you just got to sit there and let it unfold. But like a book, I could just read faster and see what's about to
Also, I
happen.
feel like in a book, there's always more suspense for me. In a movie, I can just sometimes I feel like I just know what's gonna happen next, and I'm just waiting for it to happen. Where in a book, when I'm like in an exciting part, I'm just turning pages. I feel like I don't know what's gonna happen, even if it's a common trope and like it's not a groundbreaking book because of the format and the medium. I feel like I could be surprised at any moment what's gonna happen next.
Good.
Yeah, what was your question again? What did you say?
That does. Does a book actually affect your mood?
Yes
Um,
and no. This is my other political question. So
Man doesn't even like politics, by the way.
recently we saw Black Panther, which has a large cast of diverse characters and multi-ethnic characters, right? Do you feel that we see characters as white because we are white, or because characters have been predominantly portrayed as white people in visual media? For instance, if let's say there were more directors like Jordan Peele, or just more uh, black or Indian or whatever ethnic representation in mass media, would that affect our perspective, or does the innate reason that we see characters as white in our heads is because we are white? Because we talked about over text, we were reading prior to the Orange Tree. It's just like it's hard to imagine for us all of the characters being all these ethnicities, where if it doesn't state it, our default is just white person.
Yeah, I think it's an obvious association thing. Like your baseline is gonna be, and it's something I don't think about at all. That's the real thing. That's why I think when it's made to be a point, like that's
Mm-hmm.
why, I mean, it happens in books all the time, obviously. They're like, oh, they're tan skin. Oh, she looked pale. His
Mm-hmm.
dark amber, whatever, like they said it a lot in Priory. Yeah, they associate it with other things, like an amber, like whatever.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
obviously they're a writer. They're not gonna be like, Eid was black.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, yeah.
of course. But like, I think the baseline is obviously just to associate yourself into the book, and then right when I'm told differently,
Yeah.
I'll do that. But I don't think I'm not gonna say it has anything to do with like what directors or authors whatever have you, since they have more popularity, that it opens up your mind to being like, okay, I'm more open to them being a certain different ethnicity. I think it's
Yeah.
just simply you start
Yeah.
reading it without thinking about that at all, and you keep it the same
Yeah. Like I'm
until
not
you're told
reading with
differently.
prejudice. Like
I'm not like,
I'm not waiting for the
everyone's white.
characters to be white. I'm just like, but if it's not stated otherwise, just my natural imagination just goes to everyone looking
Well,
like I look.
my thing is, I think I'm actually a big. I think it depends on the context. Like with Cradle or something like that.
Hmm.
I think you're obvious. It starts right from the beginning with the names. Obviously, it's a culture thing.
Yeah.
Asian culture,
I mean,
immediate.
yeah, that as
Immediate
well.
start out.
But also, I don't know about you. When I read, I don't really ever have, unless there's like a picture somewhere or it's been a movie or something. I never have a picture of what characters look like exactly in my head.
Yeah, I have a vague outline because I think it's common for everyone. It's hard to hold that much knowledge. I don't think it really matters to me is a
Yeah.
big thing until that's why I love art so much because it lets you just like really picture it.
Yeah, author put pictures in your books. That would help so much.
Yeah, just nice. I know it probably costs a lot, but obviously Stormlight Archives, huge. I mean, he gives everything an
Mhm.
image, but also he's huge, has a lot of
Yeah.
money to throw around. Kratos, it would be huge, dude. You'd think with how big Kratos is, well, it's not that big, like we talked about, but you'd think there'd be more fan art
Mm.
because how many people love the series. It's just not there, and I think that makes it hard. But I
Yeah.
skim over details like that anyway.
Yeah.
It's not really relevant.
Yeah. A lot of times when I'm reading, it'll be like she had curly hair and hazel eyes. But when I'm actually reading the book, I'm not imagining any of that. I'm just
Yeah.
imagining general person and
I'm just imagining like simple movement,
yeah.
almost a blank face, honestly, unless they like specifically, like make reference to like, oh yeah, like oh she was looking so pale that day, whatever,
Yeah.
and
Or like
her hair was slicked back. I was like,
Tane has a fish
scar,
hook
yeah,
shaped scar. It's like something like that. I can imagine, but even that, even a distinct detail like that, I don't imagine it scene to scene. It's only when they
yeah,
bring it up.
exactly. I forget about it the next time. What was the question?
Why are you racist? And do you think this is a small follow up? We can just say like a sentence on it. Do you think future generations of people will continue that, or do you think, say in the future, when we have like more equal representation, do you think people will imagine, like, if you grew up with all the characters being diverse in everything you read, would you just always assume that they're always diverse? Like that would be your standard instead of like a cast of a single color?
Actually, I still, even though I did say it's an association thing, I still almost see it as blank for me. I don't
Like
think
it
we're
just doesn't exist?
I don't think we're those people
Yeah.
anyway until it's given a paint to the picture and like I mean
Hmm.
I don't think about it. It's blank.
Yeah.
It's a loose like oh maybe they're white until I'm
Yeah.
told differently. So I don't think it matters.
Yeah. I
It
don't
might
think
matter more for some people.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think we're the same in that. Where like the characters almost don't even they don't have a physical form unless it's stated otherwise.
Yeah, I'm more think about who they are and
Yeah.
how they're written as like
It's more
their
just a
personalities, not
corporeal being.
unless they're like yeah, and like unless it's a huge point where it's like this character oh he walked up and he was huge and
or
burly.
like yeah, I was about to say that like Tyrion in Game of Thrones where he's
Yeah.
the dwarf. It's
Yeah.
like oh
Small,
every
ugly, whatever.
if it's something that distinct, every scene I imagine him as a dwarf. But
Yeah.
if it's like John was 6'2", I will never imagine
Yeah.
John. It's just,
That's just like, oh, he's the giant. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll associate him as a giant, but it never goes deeper than that. Final question. This one, I don't know if you're going to have this knowledge on hand, as I note. I don't know if you have this knowledge on hand. But what is your single most memorable moment from a book? Vaguely. You don't have to give the exact detail to spoil anyone, but like,
I could recite the whole chapter.
is it Dune?
No, it's not. It is in Children of Time. I think it's chapter 2 or 3, and I don't want to say what happens because I don't want to ruin the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really when I got into reading. That's like the first. That's like the first book I chose on my own. Where like, I was just like, this book sounds interesting, and I will read it. And they have a chapter. It's about a spider. It's so weird. It's just about a spider, a jumping spider, but it changes your perception of the entire book. And it's the first time a book like opened my eyes and I like saw the vastness of a universe that a book can create and how expansive a world can be inside a piece of literature where I'd never had that experience before. Like reading books in high school, like just stuff you read for class, usually pretty mundane stuff, and even books I had read for pleasure weren't like anything crazy. I didn't know. That's why I'd always said, like growing up, or even more than that, like till I was like 19, I was like, yeah, I don't really read because when I would read something, it would just be like, yeah, that was fine, but it didn't like open my eyes. But that was the first time reading something where it was like I've never experienced anything that mind-blowing or world-changing before, and I actually skipped my last 2 classes of the day and sat in the library for 4 hours reading the book.
God. So you just finished the book that day?
No,
Oh,
it's a long book,
oh.
but I I read the vast majority of it. Yeah.
Damn. And that was Children of Time, the first one?
Yeah, that's the first book in the series. Yeah. So if you want to read Children of Time, if you want to have my experience, you only got to get to chapter 2. Read like 40 pages,
Damn,
and
that's
you'll have
all.
a yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything as heavy as that. I hope to, eventually, I see people talk about that so much, so much. I don't think um I'm as easily swayed. I don't know if that's just like me, but people always say like, "Oh, after I read this one book, it changed my perspective on life." I don't think I'll ever be that guy because I know everything already. I'm
You're
like
just too smart. You can't.
I I don't really know the real reason why. I might just be so neutral. I'm not like a huge, peaks and peaks kind of guy where I'm just like,
Mhm.
"Oh my God, my heart jumps out of my chest." But so mine, it's very simple. It was an anime moment almost, but it just keeps me going. It was in the first series I watched since I really started reading again, Superpowers, the
Mhm.
superhero book, and it was just a simple. It's a big part of the book where something happens to the university they're at, like an invasion of sorts, and the main character kind of steps in and he breaks. Just a classic display of raw power, and like just like give me butterflies. I was like, God, it was so epic. Like just those moments. It's like it's pure anime moment
Yeah.
where like some insane happens, and like whatever the main character kills someone they never thought they something like
Mhm.
that, and that was my moment, and it was insane. That was like what really got me more into reading, of course. But I just sat there for a second. I was like, God, that was so epic. And then
Yeah.
I don't have anything deep yet.
I don't. Okay. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think I'll ever have a book I read that changes my perception on life. Like that was really cool, and it got me into reading, and it probably changed the course of my life.
And that's all.
But
Well, maybe not
well, the
course,
course of
huh?
my
That day.
of my hobbies, not my like my yeah. Um yeah, I don't think I'll ever read a book and have a whole new philosophy on how I treat existence, because I think those kind of like important truths come from like introspection and like self meditation. You're not going to get that from reading a philosophy book. Like maybe you get introduced to those ideas, but if you really want to understand them, you're going to have to look within yourself and find ways to relate them to your own life. You're not going to get that just from reading a book.
I sometimes worry, or I sometimes wonder, if it depends on what type of I know it does, obviously, on what type of
Mm,
person you are. If it's like, I don't want to like, if you never thought about that before, like, because I
yeah.
have a couple buddies who are really into philosophical books, and they've said that a lot. Like, each book is like mind blowing. It changes how they think about things. You think it's because they just never thought like that before? I always think about that where it's just like they never thought in that way before, so it opens it up. Whereas
Yeah.
like I feel like what are you possibly gonna say that my messed up mind hasn't considered
I think we're just
at some
I think
point?
we're just two boring people, and we spend a lot of time thinking.
Yeah,
And,
maybe because I feel like I've considered every option of like
uh,
at least simple thoughts like, oh, how you should really think about
I
life and
think I think
happiness.
also we're both very, I don't know if slow is the right word, or
Damn.
like no. Yeah, there's a word that comes after it, but we're like slow to adapt ideals. So like you're not gonna read a book that introduces a new way of thinking and immediately adopt that, and I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna like sit on it, and maybe we'll take some things from that, but we're not gonna completely change our personality
And
based on a reading.
that may be a bad thing, to be honest. It may
Yeah.
be our lives may be better if we were to take like a whole different. But yeah, I'm definitely not like that at all. I mean, it would take a lot for me to just change a little, something like that. But
Mhm.
that's for like philosophical stuff. As far as like normal series, fantasy, sci-fi, it's more just like, man, this author it's insane that he ever thought about that. It's more like that,
Yeah.
where it's like what you think reading could be for you. It would change that for me. Like I mean, like it has now. I mean, I never liked reading, and then just starting Superpowers, and then all these other books has made me realize like it's so awesome the depth
Yeah.
of a
You
world.
had all these potential universes and enjoyments that you didn't even know were there. Now they're just
Exactly.
all waiting for you.
And it's also more than you could ever get from a series for the most part. That's why
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, if
game
you wanted to
changer.
like if you wanted to really adapt a book, it would take like hundreds of hours of visual storytelling. Even a simpler book like Ender's Game would take
A
like a 20
series.
hour movie to express all those emotions and feelings and go into depth about what characters are thinking, where in a book you can write that in a paragraph and you
And
immediately get it.
it's also like your own personal perception.
Yeah.
You got to take it in. You got to imagine in a certain way that no matter what, once they bring it to fruition, it's gonna be like, that's not exactly how I imagined it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's like the
Yeah.
rule in horror where it's like don't show the monster for as long as you can because whatever you're imagining in your mind is always going to be
Yeah.
scarier than what can be displayed on screen. And in books, you get to do that the whole time because you never have to see anything and maybe you're watching a movie and you're like, I don't like that actor. A book, you're always going to get a perfect performance because you're doing it in your own
Yeah,
mind.
exactly. But yeah, that was our. I really do hope that I do have a more memorable, eventually, something like you, but it might not never happen. It's also a different case because we're older. We have our own ideals already. It's gonna be
Yeah.
hard if we were to read these books when we were 12 years old.
Yeah, I do think
That's
if
a big factor.
if we read something like Lord of the Rings in our more formative years, that sounds so stupid. I hate that word. But if we read it when we were younger, maybe our
Developing.
personalities would have changed a lot more, and we would have, you know how like when you're younger, you kind of like can become like a fanboy of something.
Yeah, you take
Where-
it with you with everything you
where
do.
I feel like we don't really do that now. Even if we, like, even Children of Time, which is my favorite book, I'm not gonna like make that part of my personality. It's
Yeah.
just something that exists.
And it's also just who we are. We're not very valuable people like that. We're
I don't really
very.
know if that was a word you just said.
Valuable is a word.
Really?
Yeah.
You
Well,
saying
like,
malleable?
valuable.
What does that mean? You gotta prove it to me. You got a dictionary of this word.
Means that they're not perfect and likely to make mistakes and fail while they're doing it.
Oh, that's what you meant.
I'm more.
Or
that-
did you mean
no.
malleable?
No, not mal. That's not really us.
Malleable is like molding.
I guess maybe. I think that's more of like a physical.
Why are we going to argue about definitions?
Anyway.
right now?
Anyway, our minds aren't easily changed
yeah.
as we are as people. So I think that's a huge thing. I'm not gonna say we're contrarian, but we kind of are. So I feel like I'm gonna want to go against anything.
That was a very contrarian thing to say that you're not.
But yeah, so I think that's a big factor. But
Will you ever read Dune?
that's such a stupid question. Why would you waste your thought-provoking question on that?
Because you still haven't read it. And I feel like,
Um,
okay, the reason I'm asking you this question is because Dune has ruined everything for me. Because it is in everything. Like, I feel like everyone who has ever written any sort of sci-fi has taken inspiration from Dune. It is insane how, not persuasive, what's the word? Influential
Influential,
it has been on the entire sci-fi landscape, books, movies, shows, video games, everything. It's crazy. So,
I mean, it's the same as Lord of the Rings, and I actually did think about it, but now I am not.
no, never gonna read it.
You ruined it. I'm not gonna. I don't want anything to, mess up my perception of the books. Same with Lord of the Rings now. I really want to read it before I read everything else.
Mhm.
But isn't it so much better if I don't know where everything came from? Everything is just its own thing.
I mean, that's a valid answer.
I do want to read Dune eventually, but I just don't think I'd like it. And my TBR is too long now.
I think
like
once you
5
read
years.
it, you'll realize that it's the first sci-fi book to have compelling political and social ideas perfectly integrated into a sci-fi story. So in a way, that's always going to be in every story you read. That's why you can say Dune is in everything, because everything's going to have some sort of social or political intrigue. But it's just so hard not to notice because the way is integrated is so interesting that I don't know if there's another way to do it. So because it was the first, it is automatically just the gene father of every other sci-fi.
Yeah, but also it's true because nothing else really happens. Like it's not like a huge action adventure. It's all about the political and social aspects, right? I mean, that's what.
I mean, there is a lot of action adventure in it.
Yeah, but it's just like, when would I read it? at this point. I need to try it. But yeah, I'd rather be ignorant to it, to be honest. Now that you said that, made
It
that
is
point.
also, we've talked about this together before, but it is one of those books where you probably won't love it the first time you read it.
Exactly.
And you got to read it 2 to 3 times to be like, oh, that's what was going on, or oh, this is how this connects. And
I personally hate that. I hate stuff like that
but it's
so
like
much.
not even,
I hate where you have to understand stuff. I'm just not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of a
just
deep.
no think, just look.
I hate it. I hate a deep, convoluted.
It's not even that complicated. Honest, it's the book we're reading now. It's probably more complicated, but it's just, I guess not because it's harder to understand.
Oh,
It's just, I don't know, it's just a good book.
I'll get to it eventually, but I feel like it's on the same, not the same plane, but Malazan, Book of the Fall, like those are supposed to be extremely complicated, and that's just like so weird. I almost feel like you're trying to like it, like you're just like, man, I have to read it 6 times, but after that, like, no, you shouldn't have read it 6
I do feel
times,
like
dude.
Malazan is written to be intentionally complicated.
Yeah, they
where
do.
Dune,
He's just
it
how
just
he is.
exists on its own as like this phenomena that just happened because the first Dune book, even Frank Herbert's other works have never lived up to that level. So you could say it's just like a fluke that it was that good, and it hasn't been replicated since then. And not to say that there aren't better books than Dune, but just nothing that landscape changing.
Well, yeah, it's also hard to compare. Same as Lord of the Rings. It was one of the first to do it, so it could just, it kind of takes that.
It's like trying to
history.
it's like trying to write a joke after 1603 when Don Quixote was written.
Yeah.
It's like the origin of comedy and tragedy, and it's like anything you write after that is just going to be
It's gonna be
replica.
watered down. It's kind of like because you just gotta, no matter what, you gotta feel like, man, they kind of just took it from there. But it's also like, yeah, that's just how it, because
That's like the
baseline. You just
the thing. I don't believe this, by the way, but the thing that there are only 7 stories to tell. It's like it's a thing that humans can only create 7 stories,
what?
and every story is just a different way of telling one of those 7. You should. I don't know the 7, but like I'm just gonna make this up. But like the comedy, the tragedy,
Oh,
and it's just like every story is just gonna be
a branch off.
or it's just gonna be like it's gonna be like romance, parent troubles, and
Yeah,
every book is
I
just gonna
mean,
be like
it's all the
shoot
same
off of that.
structure.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, that's just how it works, and you just add uniqueness in a certain way. But yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I actually don't think it would dilute my appreciation for other books if I were to read Dune, because I do plan on reading Lord of the Rings eventually as well. But I kind of just, we kind of got ahead of ourselves. Like, I wanted to do this slow start, but then we started this, and now it's like, do I really want to go back?
Yeah, I also haven't read Lord of the Rings yet, and I do
Terrible. But he knows everything about it.
Yeah, I watched the lore, but I do think that it will be a different perspective for us having read these more niche series, and then eventually when we do read Lord of the Rings, we'll kind of understand what a fantasy book is more than if we would have read it in high school and that was like our first big epic fantasy. Then we already have that kind of in our heads, and maybe
See,
we'll understand it quicker than a
well,
normal person will.
I actually perceive it in the other way. Same as where I don't want to read it to ruin everything else.
Mhm.
I'm almost scared that we go back and we don't love it as much as everyone else because we're so used to the newer stuff that is, obviously Lord of the Rings paved the way, but these new things are probably doing some stuff better. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what if I just like everything else more?
It's like
Which is fair.
yeah, it's like could could uh could the 60s Boston Celtics beat even like the Memphis Grizzlies now?
Yeah.
Probably not, because sports and athleticism
Humans.
has advanced so much further, and we understand so much more about training now, and we're so much more specialized in basketball, that specific sport, that even though they are the best for their time, in the future, once you have that as a basis to learn off of, you can just improve on top of it.
Yeah, and I also feel like I see it so much where people say Lord of the Rings is their favorite series, but then you hear the same thing. I read it when I was 14, 15, It's like, yeah, it's hard to say because I think it's more rare that people read it in their adulthood and they take everything back that they've ever read as like a lie. Lord of the Rings is better than everything. I think everyone appreciates it. That's no,
Let's insert this clip in 2027 after we read Lord of the Rings and we're like, damn, that was the best thing I've ever read.
I really hope it is. I really do hope it's better than anything. Give me like a year. Maybe a year.
No date on when Dune will be read so
tentative.
far. I've read it 4 times, so
still don't understand it.
God, if only I knew how to read, it would be so much easier.
Just keep looking at it. I don't know.
What am I supposed to gain from this?
Y'all really like this?
Couldn't be me.
But yeah, that was all.
That was all 10 questions. I enjoyed this.
I think we had a really good banter to
really
it.
good.
It gave way more interpretation than our usual, obviously.
Well, we're working. We're improving every day.
Yeah.
Strive for greatness, kid from Ohio. It's what LeBron James says on all of his tweets and stuff.
Man, a lot of the sports stuff today.
I'm just feeling sports.
He also doesn't watch sports. He just
I watch the NBA. Come on.
No.
Okay, I watch the NBA playoffs. I think if we do another one of these, which we probably will, I think it would be fun to have a third person and do 3 questions each. Like we each bring 3 questions.
9.
Okay, one of us can bring 4. I'm just saying, I think we could get a lot more,
No clue.
whatever. We can get a lot more into these questions and we can pull more out of each other with a third dynamic.
Yeah.
Because we are so similar in our thought process that, in general, if you ask me and Drake any question, we will give a fairly similar answer.
I think it's especially true for more like
especially
philosophical.
Especially
that's
with
be hard.
Especially with things that are a little bit more heady. We're gonna think similar. So if we brought in someone, a wild card.
It's a wild card.
Well, when we do,
we're actually gonna walk on the streets and
please join the Discord. If anyone joins the Discord and
we need someone to talk to
and recommends a Stephen King book, we'll do the podcast with Andre, and we'll have Andre on here for that as well.
And he knows so much more about books than us, so it'd be nice to have.
But just anyone, anyone that's different from us would be awesome. I don't know if Michael's different from us. He may be the same.
No, Michael and I are very similar.
Damn it.
But you tend to, I mean...
Just a sneak preview for any of you that listen this far. A man named Michael will be on an episode about the book Superpowered eventually.
And Cradle.
Michael...
I'm just going to call him out right here. If he does listen to it, and I think he is on the Discord. Michael's basically giving me every single recommendation I have for a book, and I've read it and loved it. So that kind of just adds to, like, obviously we're very similar. Everything he likes, I like. But still, it'd be nice to have a huge discussion. And my brother, too, is reading along with us.
If we never get Cole on camera. I've never even seen him. He always scuttles away. I see him at the corner of my eye. So
he's always there.
If we can ever get Cole on, he can be on these too. But I think that's it. Unless you have anything more to add?
No, I think that's all. I think this is a good episode. We should definitely do more of these.
Tomorrow? Record?
Yeah.
One a day we'll record. Thank you everyone for watching. That sounded like I was about to start a prayer.
Everyone rise.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for watching this video. No,
everyone please rise.
Thank you for watching the video. This will be up. Well, you know where it's up. But I'm going to post this to podcast.
And please check out the TikTok. We're trying to get some traction.
Yeah.
And Discord. Discord's like, we just want someone.
It's funny.
Please.
It's so funny how Discord is our main thing. And it's like,
well, it's going to be the hardest to have traction. We already knew that.
Our TikTok's blown up, though. I think we're up to 3 followers, and only 2 of those are me and Drake. So we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for watching. Soon, it's going to be like, when this uploads, it'll probably be the next week that Priory of the Orange Tree video comes out. So if you're participating in that, make sure you finish up that long-ass book.
Do we want it to be a surprise about the...
Yeah, no, I'm not going to mention that.
Okay.
Yeah, that, keep it under wraps. It's going to be a surprise drop. So,
okay.
Yep, thank you for watching. Do you want to do your little signature thing?
Yep, and without further ado, pause and